Welcome to TV Toastmasters Advanced Club number 9523 September 2008 meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Our president, Darren Henderson, is not able to join us today. I am the VP of Education. My name is Laura Lee Gayfield. Thank you very much for joining us here in the studio audience and also those of you watching at home. Please help me get our meeting started off today with a warm round of applause for our Toastmaster, Mr. Steve Ahrenholz. Steve.
Thank you, Madam Vice President, fellow Toastmasters, our honored guests, and those of you watching in from home today. We have a very good meeting ahead of us. We have 3 prepared speeches today. We will have table topics, which will help us work on our impromptu speaking. But first, we are going to have our word power and counter presentation. Word power helps us to increase our vocabulary. And one of the other things that our word power counter person will be doing today is watching for verbal crutches that we use. These would be things like ahs, ums, stringing our sentences together with excessive ands and so's. That's one of my favorites. Help me welcome Sheila Mudd-Baker for our word power.
Something wicked this way comes. I think everybody has heard that line from Macbeth. Something wicked this way comes. The word wicked is an interesting word. It comes from an Old English word, Wicca, which means witch or wise woman or healer. And we use the word wicked in a variety of ways. Sometimes we use the word wicked to indicate evil. Sometimes we use it to mean good, such as, if you live in Maine, yeah, it's wicked good. Okay, so there are a lot of different ways we can use wicked. We also say, ooh, that was a wicked drink. You know, when we're talking about having a cup of espresso and it blows our brains out, we know that wicked has a variety of meanings. So today, your duty as Toastmasters is to figure out a way to use the word wicked sometime during your presentation. Mr. Toastmaster?
Thank you, Sheila. Well, for the next part of our meeting, we are going to have table topics, and there are a number of Toastmasters that regard table topics as a wicked event. But when you really think about it, table topics is probably one of the things that a lot of us use every day. How often are you asked to speak on something that you really hadn't been thinking about within the last 5 or 10 minutes? So you are unprepared. Our table topics mistress today will be asking questions of our Toastmasters that are present here in our studio audience, and they will have the amount of time it takes them to get up here to the lectern to prepare their response. If you will help me welcome Mary Arms, our table topics master for today, we will start our table topics.
Hello, everyone. Well, I have a question, and one of you are going to be my person's going to answer it. If you could go anywhere in the world, where would you go and why? Rick.
If I could go anywhere in the world, where would I go and why? This is easy. I've got this figured out already. My hobby is a scuba diver. I love to breathe air underwater. Any breath I take underwater is better than every breath I've taken above water. And my goal is to go to the South Pacific and to dive the shipwrecks from World War II. Out to Micronesia, to go out there and explore the Japanese Zero that's sitting at the bottom of the ocean, the aircraft carrier that was sunk during the atomic bomb testing, so that you can explore fully loaded. Everything's still there except the people. Everything's still there, that you can explore the aircraft carrier, to go out and see the beauty that's underwater. So when you walk outside like today and you say, oh, today is so gorgeous, what colors do you see? Blue and green. When you go underwater, you see every color of the rainbow, provided that you bring a flashlight with you, because the water filters out much of the color, and something that looks brown underwater may in actuality be brilliant red. Micronesia, that's where I would go, and I would go scuba diving. Thank you for asking me.
Thank you very much. Now, if I went scuba diving, I would drown. Now, my next question is, how did the windstorm affect you? Carol, would you like to come up?
How did the windstorm affect me? Madam Tabletopics Master, fellow Toastmasters, and our most welcome guest, our viewing audience also. I was without power from Sunday afternoon until Tuesday at noon. I never thought of throwing away everything in my refrigerator, but my niece was over and she pulled out the drawer. My freezer's on the bottom of the refrigerator, and she said, "You need to throw out everything in here because it has been defrosted." And I had berries in there, and where the ice, I had a bag of ice in there, and where the ice melted, I had red juice all over the bottom of the freezer. So we threw everything out except the butter that I had in the freezer. I haven't thrown away everything in the refrigerator, but I threw chicken salad and ham salad and mayonnaise. And fortunately, I was at the end of a jar of mayonnaise and didn't have the new one opened yet. And a jar of ranch dressing that I had just opened, she said to throw away, but I tasted it last night. It tasted okay to me. And she said, well, it'd be better to throw it away than find out by throwing up. But a lot of the things, I had gotten rid of all of my stuff that I need to demonstrate in my clutter class on getting rid of things when they're past the date. And so I had all these things now that I can save for my class. So I have a whole new supply for things for my class. So it wasn't too bad. It was okay. I learned to use a little flashlight and go around, and it was okay. Thank you, Madam Talk Me Through
Very much. Okay. The next question is, fall's coming up. So the question I have is, what is your favorite autumn activity? Steve.
Thank you, Madam Tabletopics Master, fellow Toastmasters, our honored guests, and our guests looking in from home. My favorite fall activity? Well, the first thing that comes to mind is, what is my favorite fall activity versus what is one of the things that I'm doing the most of in fall? And they're not the same thing. I think my favorite fall activity would be going out to an orchard and picking apples. I haven't done that in a long time, but it's something that I used to do years ago, and when I was growing up, my mother would always be talking to my brother and I because we were up in the tree somewhere, eating the apples up in the tree. What I really do in October or in fall is rake leaves. I have a small yard and I have a number of sugar maples, and we seem to be getting into this trend where we have drought towards the end of summer every year, which means a lot of the trees are going to be dropping their leaves earlier. I wind up packing about 25 to 35 bags of yard waste for leaves and lugging them down to the curb. I like the smell of autumn. I like to see the colors of the leaves. I like to pick apples. I don't like raking the leaves that much, but I like the trees. So I will just keep raking leaves. Maybe I'll get myself out to pick up some apples and hauling my bags of yard waste to the curb. Madam Tabletopics Master?
Thank you very much. And, okay, my last question is, what are you doing in your home to prepare for the next weather crisis? Linda.
Madam Tabletopics Master, fellow Toastmasters, guest, and our viewing audience. What am I doing to prepare for our next weather crisis? Probably the same thing I did for this one, nothing. And I am probably more prepared than the majority of people. I grew up in the country. And when I say I grew up in the country, I mean the country. My nearest neighbor that I wasn't related to was 5 miles. The nearest one I was related to was 2 miles. I rode a school bus route that was 87 miles, the whole distance of it. It was 15 miles from the school that I went to and 18 miles from the nearest relatively large community. I grew up in the country. Stuff stays in my cabinets. I probably have enough food in my cabinets to feed all of us for a week anyway. I did find that I didn't have batteries for the flashlight, and I didn't know where the flashlights were. Fortunately, I was only without power for 2 hours, and that was 4 to 6 on Sunday afternoon. So we actually had enough daylight to see what we were doing. What I will do to prepare is to know where the flashlights are and to make sure that I have batteries. Madam Tabletopics Master.
Thank you very much. And that is it. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Tabletopics Master. Well, I bet you won't find Linda among the people that go to Kroger every day to figure out what they're going to have for supper that night. Now we're going to have the part of our meeting where we will hear from speakers who are giving us a prepared speech. We are fortunate in having 3 speakers today. Our first speaker is Rick Barron. He is a certified life success consultant and business partner of Bob Proctor from The Secret. He's also the host of a new program that's coming to Anderson Public Access Television called Cause and Success, which he presents practical tools to make wealth a predictable result in your life. Rick is going to be giving us speech number 5 from the Humorously Speaking Manual. He is practicing for the Area 35 Humorous Speech Contest, which will be held this coming Tuesday. And the title of his speech is Time of Your Life. Help me welcome Rick Barron.
Thank you. Have you had yours yet? Research indicates that only 15% of us will be fortunate enough to have one. But I'll bet you just can't wait for yours. The highly sought after midlife crisis. The average age at which the self-diagnosed midlife crisis occurs is 46. If I'm expected to live to be 78, shouldn't I self-diagnose my midlife crisis a few years earlier? Maybe we're just too busy feeling sorry for our friends that are in the midst of their midlife crisis to realize that ours has already occurred. Have you stopped to think about it? What is a midlife crisis? According to Harley Davidson and BMW, it's the age at which men make a purchase they can't afford to buy something they're too fat to fit on or in comfortably, to ride around town to let the wind blow through their hair, to try to impress women who know it's an excuse to try to feel young again. Some have hypothesized that the male midlife crisis is brought on by the imminent menopause of their female partner, signaling the end of her reproductive career. This can be interpreted by the male mind as an excuse to pursue younger women. Ladies, I'll bet you figured it was going to be your fault all along. And you've got to be asking yourself, so what's changed? He's been eyeballing younger women since the day he got his first whisker. Tripping over someone or something while holding your hand as he tries to catch a glance. Or pretending to adjust the radio while in the car so he can rubberneck that hot young thing that just drove by. Yes, ladies, you're very patient with us fellas. And whether we say it or not, there is no one we'd rather grow old with than you. I'm sorry. I apologize for getting sidetracked. My mind must have been wandering. What about you women? Do ladies experience a midlife crisis as well? The experts tell us that the midlife crisis lasts half as long for women as men. Are women really better at undiagnosing themselves sooner? I think their older friends just pass along their beauty secrets, Botox and liposuction. Let's investigate some of the typical behaviors experienced during a midlife crisis. The first is abuse of alcohol. Now, alcohol abuse is a relative term. Abuse to one may be a great day getting thrown out of a Bengals game to another. If you find your thoughts being consumed by alcohol, set the cheerleaders down and call a taxi to leave the fraternity house right away. Another typical behavior is what's termed conspicuous consumption, and it's what we talked about earlier. Buying things that are unusual or expensive, even getting tattoos or piercings. So why is it that young women think a stud in their tongue or face, or a tattoo on their lower back that they can't even see, is so attractive? Not fair. Why do they get to trash their bodies at such an early age? What are they going to do when it's time for their midlife crisis? Buy a minivan and play soccer mom? If you use the conspicuous consumption definition, I had my midlife crisis at 29. I bought a car I couldn't afford at a time in my life when I had a renewed love for alcohol. I bought a wicked cool 1968 Rally Sport Camaro convertible. My wife calls it my other head car. It's got a 327 cubic inch engine, a Turbo Glide 400 transmission, and will pass everything on the road except a Shell station. Do you know what? It's not the ladies that are impressed at all. I get more comments from young boys that think it's an old Mustang. Ugh! Obviously, Chevy is losing the pony car rivalry. Fortunately, GM is resurrecting the Camaro for the 2009 model year, and there'll be a whole new generation of boys that knows what it means to alienate their girlfriend over a car. People going through their midlife crisis are often accused of trying to pursue a feeling of youthfulness. If you find yourself sending more text messages than phone calls, you're probably in the midst of your midlife crisis. As a teenager, I couldn't wait to turn 16 so I could drive legally. And then to turn 18 so I could vote. No, so I could buy beer legally. And then to turn 21 so I could buy booze. Help me out here. Legally, right? As a 21-year-old college student, I couldn't wait to turn 25 so I could stop paying high-risk car insurance rates. At 29, I had it all. I had a good-paying job. I had a home. I had my other head car. I wanted life to stand still. Before I knew what happened, I'm 45, trying to find the courage to leave my high-paying job to pursue my career of owning my own company with a mortgage on a home and a timeshare with the same 1968 Camaro. Am I allowed to have two midlife crises? I was always a bit of an overachiever, but this is ridiculous. Does anyone want my second midlife crisis? I'll be happy to share. No, I get to keep the Camaro. For most people, midlife is a time of achievement and satisfaction. For a small percentage, though, the passage is not at all smooth. Who was it that said, go to school, study hard, get good grades, go to work for a good company, and you'll lead a happy and fruitful life? Yeah, but now I get to abuse alcohol, buy things I can't afford, pierce body parts, and get my tattoo that says, age is a state of mind. I'm only as old as I allow myself to feel. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Of course, that means that we can tell that, we're in the middle of our crisis, not at the beginning or the end. I haven't figured that out. I just have a crisis. I don't distinguish as to which part it is. Our second speaker today is our Area 57 governor, and she is also past president and current treasurer of Springdale Communicators Toastmasters Club. The Springdale Communicators Club has achieved President's Distinguished in the Distinguished Club program of Toastmasters for 4 consecutive years. Linda has been a member of Toastmasters since April of 2006. She believes in achieving the most she can achieve in all areas of her life. Today, she will be presenting the second project in the Competent Communicator Manual. The project is Organize Your Speech. She is to give a speech with a clearly defined goal. The speech will have a beginning, a body, and a conclusion. One of her objectives is to have a smooth transition between facts and ideas. The title of Linda Ketchum's speech is What's in It for Me? Help me welcome Linda Ketchum.
Good morning, fellow Toastmasters, guests, and our TV audience. I have a confession to make. I did not join Toastmasters because I wanted to. I may have been forced. It is possible somebody was holding my arm up and twisting it, but it was a verbal twist rather than an actual twist. Some of you may know that I am the founding minister of Beacon of Life Spiritual Center here in Cincinnati. So part of my requirements as a minister is to speak every Sunday. And I did a lot of public speaking in high school and through 4-H when I was growing up. As I shared earlier, I grew up way out in the country and I did a lot of stuff with 4-H. But I remember, sort of, when I gave speeches, I never won. And I usually won most of what I did. And I remember my mother telling me that I stood there like this and my voice was flat across. Now, in my mind, I did all of great body movements and my vocal variety was awesome. And I'm sure in the few years since I was in high school that I had automatically improved these characteristics. And that what I was doing was really coming out. But you know what I was hearing from people? Was that my voice was rather even and my body movements were too much close to the chest. So after a series of events at my church, it was highly suggested, it had been highly suggested before that I consider joining Toastmasters. And it was finally said to me by somebody I was willing to listen to, you really need to do that. And a friend of mine who's one of my congregants invited me to her Toastmasters. And it was at Tuesday at noon on the way to work. And I go into work, I work afternoons and evenings. I as a minister, you really work more second shift and 24-hour days than anything else. So it worked. And I went to their open house, and I heard Gary Reese speak, and I thought, maybe I do need to do this. But being me, I decided that since I was going to do it, I would check all the boxes. So I am very much an overachiever in a lot of areas. So I started giving speeches. And it's amazing how much more animated that I have become. Because I can use Toastmasters to try the things that I can't try on Sunday morning. That I don't have the courage to suddenly start using my arms and to suddenly start using greater vocal variety. Probably one of the best things that I have done as a minister is realize that one of my key factors is the use of humor. I had a young couple come to my church a few weeks ago, and as I was greeting them as they were leaving, the young woman looked at me and smiled, and she said, "You are so funny." And I think that if we can integrate humor into what we're doing, that people have more opportunity to listen. They don't shut down. They hear more of what you say. It's another way that they get the point. So what's in it for me as a Toastmaster is the opportunity to try new things, to expand my repertoire of what I do, to use those different elements, to use humor, to use storytelling. One of the great things about Toastmasters is the first 10 speeches give you many opportunities to do different things. And then after you complete those 10 speeches, you have the opportunity to move into different books. Like Rick just gave a humorous speech out of the humorous speaking book. And there's a specialty speech book, and there's a public speaking book. And there's just all types of opportunity. There's even a technical manual for those of you who give technical speeches and who teach. There's just a lot of opportunity to expand our speaking opportunities. And the leadership element of Toastmasters was a very pleasant surprise to me. Laura Lee, our Vice President of Education, has encouraged everyone to bring their Competent Leader Manual and to get that completed, to have people evaluate you as Tabletopics Master or an Evaluator or Toastmaster or Speaker, so that we have the opportunity to be better. Tabletopics are awesome. Just think about the next time that you have an evaluation at work and your supervisor says something absolutely out of the blue that you never expected. If you've been active in Toastmasters and doing table topics, instead of having the perfect comeback in 2 weeks, you may actually have it when you're talking to them. Toastmasters gives us what we give to it. And as an area governor, I now have the opportunity to inspire others to move forward in the process, to know what they need to do to be a better speaker and a better employee. Our club has trouble keeping members because they come in and they get that next promotion and they can't get there at noon on Tuesdays. It is a great opportunity to improve the skills that you have personally and professionally in every element of your life. Toastmasters gives to us what we give to it, and that's what's in it for me, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Linda. I have to apologize in part of Linda's introductory information that I had here. She did indicate that she is a minister, but I'm glad the way you worked it in your speech, I think, was very effective. And one of the things that it points out to me, and I often share with people, is that Toastmasters is a learning living laboratory, and you can try things out. Your job is not dependent upon it. You're not evaluated as far as your work performance when you're doing things at Toastmasters. So it's an excellent opportunity to do some of the things that you wouldn't do otherwise. And I can fully relate to the monotonic method of speaking that puts everybody into a trance. Our third speaker today is Tiffany Everett, and she is the 2008-2009 Area 53 governor, of which TV Toastmasters is a part of. She's going to be telling our group how things are going so far this year for our club. Her speech is going to be speech number 4 from the Competent Communicator Manual. Her objective is how to say it. And the title of Tiffany's presentation is TV and Area 53. Help me welcome Tiffany Everett.
Good morning, fellow Toastmasters and our TV audience. Last year at this time, I was approached to be the area governor for this year, and I had the deer in headlight looks thinking, can I really do this? But with a lot of support from people in this audience, as well as people in my home club, I said, I can do this. So on July 1st, 2008, I became the official area governor for, at that time, 5 clubs, including TV Toastmasters. Since then, things have gone a little crazy. We picked up a club, The Voice of Us, which chartered August 1st. Sheila Mudd Baker and myself were the sponsors of the club, and Steve Ahrenholz is one of the mentors. It's a new corporate club that meets down at Lunken Airport on Thursdays. You're probably wondering, well, what does TV have to do with all this? TV is a vital part of my area. I have 6 clubs. I have to make sure that they're doing what they need to be doing and promoting people to be better communicators, be better evaluators, and become better people in all. My goal initially for our officer training was to have 75% of my officers make training. I'm proud to say that 37 of 42 made training for 88%. I had 42 warm bodies from the district. I think, were you at training, Veronica? Yes? Correction, 43. That makes it even better. 43 warm bodies. That was pretty impressive. But TV has also set ambitious goals. They want to be select distinguished and possibly presidents if they get everything. So far, TV Toastmasters has 2 of their 10 goals already early on this year, and I believe with the hard work of this group, we're going to make it to our goal that we have. I have set a goal for being President's Distinguished Area. I'm trying to follow up with 2 other people that have been President's Distinguished Area for Area 53, so we can go for a 3-peat. I don't know if that has been done, but if it hasn't, it will be. I'm very happy with how everyone is doing. We've got people that are new in the club that have jumped right in, have been giving speeches. Rick was a recent member who just joined, and he has given so many speeches, and in fact, he's representing this club at the Area 53 contest on Tuesday night. Christine participated in the club contest, which I was very happy to see that she did that. What really excites me about this club is the enthusiasm. A lot of people don't want to get up on a Saturday morning and give up their Saturday to come. But this group, everyone is always cheery and happy, and we get everything done quickly and are ready to go up and make the task known. What I like about this group is that they welcomed me with open arms. Initially, I had the arm twisted behind my back and then a second arm saying, we need you as a member. We need you to come join us. And I finally said, okay, I'll do it. It just took a couple people to drag me along, but it's been the best thing for me. I don't have the fear of being up behind the lectern anymore. I don't have the fear to get up with the group and say, well, what's going on? I can tell you this much. This club, I don't have to worry about what they're going to do, because when they say they're going to do something, they do it. No questions asked. I'm more of a guidepost than I am a taskmaster with this group. I don't have to be the Wicked Witch of the East with this group. What I want to give to all of you in the studio audience, is this: keep doing what you're doing and do it well. Don't be afraid to ask the question, because everybody in this group can say, I've been there, I've done that, I've got the t-shirt. I know I've got quite a few t-shirts for been there, done there, got the t-shirt. Finally, just keep on plugging away and doing what you do. Thank you very much, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Tiffany, and our Area 53 governor. One of the things Tiffany neglected to mention is that area governors serve as an incredible resource for each of the clubs that's in an area. If we have a question or we're having a problem with something, they are our go-to people. At this point, we are going to have the evaluation portion of our meeting. One of the important components of a Toastmasters meeting is providing feedback to its participants and to the people who presented prepared speeches. We learn what we are doing well as some of the things that we might want to consider improving in future presentations that we give. I'm going to be introducing our general evaluator for this portion of the meeting, and she will be calling upon her team of evaluators that are helping her with this portion of the meeting, and then she'll be giving an overall assessment of our meeting after each of the individual evaluators has given their presentation. If you would help me welcome our general evaluator for today, Kormelink.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and our most honored guest. The speakers will be evaluated, as Steve said. The first evaluator is for Rick Barron will be Linda Ketchum. And Linda, if you will please come and evaluate Rick's speech.
Thank you. Fellow Toastmasters, our viewing audience, Rick gave the fifth speech in the humorous speech contest. The primary purpose of this speech was to entertain, with the secondary purpose was to make a point. It was definitely entertaining. I enjoyed it a lot. I thought his idea of midlife crisis was very well portrayed. A part of this speech was also to exaggerate. Unfortunately, there are so many crazy things about midlife crisis, I don't think he had to exaggerate a whole lot for us to really get the point. The one question is, was the audience entertained? Based on the laughter that I heard, definitely, and I was laughing too hard to hear the rest of you, so if you weren't entertained, I was. There was a lot of laughter and a lot of smiles. His funny stories were great. His life experiences were wonderful. And there was one point where he took the theme and went in an unexpected direction with a really good story, and I can't remember exactly which story it was, but it was towards the end. It was a great representation. As I said, his stories were good. It was all very good. It asked if there was any place where the stories were awkward. And because I know that Rick is thinking about maybe using this in the speech contest, there was a point about 2 or 3 minutes into it where it didn't flow quite as comfortably as it did at other points, but I couldn't put my finger on exactly what it was. If it comes to me, I will let him know, because if you're working on this for the speech contest, that would be the area that I would look at the most. I thought you had, the one area that I could see improvement in presentation was you had a lot of facial expression, but I don't think that you had as much vocal variety as you may have thought you had. I think you have a tendency to do a lot with your face, but the vocal variety doesn't quite follow it as much as your other animation. I thought it was a great speech. I thought it was funny. It definitely met the requirement of humorous, and it was a great way to liven up a Saturday morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda, for that wickedly good evaluation. Our next evaluator will be Laura Lee, and she will be evaluating Linda's speech. Let us welcome Laura Lee Gayfield.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. And thank you, Linda, for sharing your speech with us titled, "What's in It for Me?" Using this speech for TV Toastmasters, I thought was a really great idea with the format that we have that is a bit more unique. Typically, when we give a speech in Toastmasters, pretty much the only people that will hear it are the 10 or 20 or so people in the room at the time. We all have our stories, and some of them, all of them are wonderful, but sometimes they just don't really get outside of our little Toastmaster group. So using your own Toastmaster story at TV Toastmasters so that our television audience can hear the story about how it's helped you, I think was a great idea. As far as your preparation, I didn't see you use any notes. I thought the speech went well. You transitioned nicely from your opening to the body and the meat of your speech to the conclusion without any trip-ups, hesitations, or repeat of sentences, a double clutch. For your organization, you basically had two themes. You started off with the ministry part, and then you talked about the ministry and Toastmasters working with each other to help towards each other's goals, and then finished with the Toastmasters. So while you started with different topics, you brought them together in the middle, and then that helped actually each one of them, I thought, reinforce each other. For your body gestures, you shared and used the differences that you had shared with us as part of your speech that you had problems with of keeping your gestures too closed in, and then at times, sometimes more naturally and sometimes with a little bit more thought, perhaps, of opening up the gestures. Because, yeah, when you're on that stage for the speaking as a minister, there's not much else to really, there's a lot of room for improvement for anybody, not just them. Let's see, what could you have done differently? You did have a few lip smacks. Some of them, especially in the beginning, were small, and then a couple of them were larger, probably because you didn't have the notes in front of you, and you had prepared well, but sometimes we're just, I know I always forget a part whenever I give a speech. So might want to watch that a little bit. You could have probably maybe brought home a little bit better what your conclusion was. You shared us this wonderful story, and you talked about Toastmasters and its opportunities, but didn't really bring in where to go to find those opportunities to the website. Call me, call the Area 53 governor who was coming up next, something like that, so people have a course of action. And that's something I work on myself, so I'm not really one to point that out. I would like to see a little bit more vocal variety. It's not terribly monotone particularly, but there is more room for grandeur, and then bring it in for the attention, which would also work well in your job. So what did I like about the presentation? I thought it was very inspirational. You had a great story and a short time frame. 2 years is a lot of, and you've put a lot of effort forth towards it, but it does go to show how well you can improve yourself through Toastmasters. Even in a short amount of time, it's not particularly a lifelong, it's a lifelong adventure, but it doesn't have to take you all your life to figure out some of the things just to be better. Madam General Evaluator, thank you.
Thank you, Laura Lee. And I see that you probably will be a contestant for the evaluation contest in the spring. We have some good evaluators here today. That's one of my weaknesses. Our third evaluator, and I'm just so proud of Christine. She's doing such a fine job for being almost a brand new member. Christine Sullivan will be evaluating Tiffany Everett. Let's welcome Christine Sullivan.
I'm Christine Sullivan, and I'll be evaluating Tiffany Everett, and her speech was called TV in Area 53. her actual purpose of this was the speech, how to say it. And this was something that I think she described her role very well in the beginning. She laid out what her purpose was very clearly and concise. And from there, she laid out what her topic was, this Toastmaster club. And I think that being a new member to the club, it was very insightful and helpful to get a peek at how this club is compared to other clubs, but also how it helps her professionally and personally grow as a member. I think she used very descriptive language in her speech. She mentioned dragged her along, guidepost, Wicked Witch of the East. I think those were very visual things to think about as an audience member, and kind of drew me into the conversation. I also thought that she was very direct and used very concise words in terms of don't have the fear. This club has helped her overcome her own fear in public speaking. And as a new member, I thought that was encouraging as well. Also, I think her ending was used very well. She used the word finally to conclude what she was saying, to kind of tip off the audience that she was coming to a close. And she also was very comfortable on stage, I thought, as a whole. One of the things that I think that she could do differently, and I'm not sure if she's 100% aware of it, is sometimes she closes her eyes during her speaking. And it's, I think, to use emphasis in a nonverbal way to convey the importance of what she's saying. But I think that just to be careful in the future of not overusing that. I thought her tone of voice was pretty even and rather good. And she, as a whole, I think, did a very good job and drew in the audience, gave not only the audience here, but also the audience in TV land an insight and scope into what this club is all about. And I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine, and I know you're getting a lot out of Toastmasters because you're putting a lot into it. Thank you very much. Another contestant for the evaluation contest. Before I do my evaluation of the evaluators, I will ask for the grammarian report from Sheila Mudd Baker. Thank you, Sheila. Our wicked.
Wicked, wicked, wicked. Steve used wicked. Rick used wicked. Tiffany used wicked in Wicked Witch of the East. So I counted Christine as using wicked because she referred to Wicked Witch of the East. And in general, I think you used it very well. We rarely go through a meeting and use the word wicked, so this is a first. I'd like to point out a couple of things. First of all, Rick, absolutely nothing in there that I could point out any errors or ahs or crutches, which was wonderful. Linda, I noticed that you have a mild use of ah. And. It's a and this is a filler. And I just used it myself. I used it. We always notice what is a problem for ourselves. And Laura Lee used which I will use myself immediately because I've said that, as a crutch. And also the phrase, let's see, which was a filler. And we all tend to do that, but if we want to give a very professional presentation, it's important to learn to cut those out. One of the wonders about TV Toastmasters is you can watch at the end, or maybe that's not a wonder. There are times where I don't want to watch it. but watch and see where there are glitches, to recognize things that you do that you're not aware of, which is not grammatically correct. But I've noticed that the American English is changing enough that we now end practically everything with a preposition. So I'm not counting any prepositions at the end of sentences as errors. So, Madam General Evaluator, I've used the word so 3 or 4 times.
If you had been a Toastmasters, you would have gotten good points because that was the word of the day. Our timer is in for a surprise because I'm going to call her up here. She is our guest. And Tina Kelly, this is our last year's president, wife. He couldn't be here and he sent his wife. Let's give her a hearty welcome. And Tina Kelly.
Well, I'm not really sure exactly how I present this. I'll just do it. I was told I give minutes on each person that spoke and their evaluating time. Rick Barron, your time was 1 minute 32 seconds. Carol Kormelink, your time was 1:43. Steve Ahrenholz, your time was 1 minute 40 seconds. And I thank you for allowing me to say this. No. Okay. Now the speakers are, okay, Rick Barron, time used was 7 minutes 46 seconds. Linda Ketchum, 6 minutes 51 seconds. Tiffany Everett, 4 minutes and 24 seconds. The evaluators, Linda Ketchum, 2 minutes 57 seconds. Laura Gayfield, 3 minutes 44 seconds. Christine Sullivan, 3 minutes 6 seconds.
Thank you so much. You did a fantastic job for not knowing what to do. I thank you very much, and I thank Veronica for helping you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wow, great. We want you as a member. It is my job now to evaluate the evaluators and to evaluate the meeting as a whole. The things that I had listed have already been talked about by the evaluators. I like the way that Linda did the sandwich method. She told Rick what he had done well, and she suggested some room for the improvement and that he had good body language. I was at a disadvantage listening to Rick's speech because he said it was practice for the contest, and he did not use the same speech that he won the contest with. So I was listening with a different ear than I might have if I hadn't known that. Laura Lee, she brought in the TV audience, and I would suggest that you pay attention to time, and I'm getting the signal that I need to be wrapping this up. Christine, one of the things when you are giving an evaluation, you talk in the third person and talk to Tiffany. She's the one that you're evaluating and say, fellow Toastmasters, especially Tiffany, and then tell her what you liked. That is something that people do not realize. I do want to mention on Linda, I don't know if you give handshakes at church, but you got to get rid of that limp handshake. You got to give a firmer handshake. One thing prior to the meeting, when you go to Free Toast Host and send out a notice because you have taken yourself off of a roll or added yourself to a roll, there's a little white block up on top of the Free Toast Host. Please put why we are getting that. I hate to look all over and try to figure out why I received that. So please put why you're sending it and your name, and that will help me. Mr. Toastmaster, great meeting.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. I want to thank all of our studio audience and our home audience that's looking in today, and particularly Tina Kelly. I hope you will come back again. I really appreciate your participation today, even though it's probably more than you were anticipating. With that, I'm going to turn it back to our Vice President of Education, Laura Lee Gayfield.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Well, I hope everybody had a wonderful time, both here and at home, for our 1 hour long meeting that we had today that we are sharing with you. As a follow-up to Linda's speech and the what's in it for me, she did hand me a note, idea for conclusion, to tell everybody to visit www.toastmasters.org for more information to find out about a Toastmasters club near you. And actually, thinking about Toastmasters, some people have said that, oh, they're too busy and, oh, the economy is too tight, but really, this is an excellent time to start with Toastmasters. It's inexpensive, under $100 a year in most cases, and as Linda had talked about, you can get it's helped others get promotions, so we've seen that all in action. Thank you very much for joining us, and now I am closing Advanced Club 9523 TV Toastmasters until next month. Thank you.